David Morrison pushed himself through the narrow maintenance tunnels of the Zenith station. His blue and gray uniform was wet with sweat and oil from the cooling system he had just fixed on level 12. The station was big, with thousands of people living and working inside it. But for David, it often felt empty and lonely. He was one of only 300 humans on a station that held over 20,000 beings from different worlds. The clock in his pocket showed that he was already 30 minutes late for his second job. The station maintenance division needed him to check the water systems on level 4 before the shift changed. If he took the normal route, he would be another hour late. But there was a faster way. It meant going through the diplomatic section of the station, where important aliens met to trade and make deals. David had used this shortcut before. He had walked through these halls at least 10 times in the past 2 months. Nobody had stopped him. Nobody had even looked at him twice. The guards who stood at the entrance to the diplomatic section barely glanced at his maintenance uniform. They saw him, recognized that he was station staff, and let him pass without questions. The halls of the diplomatic section were different from the human areas. The walls were smooth and silver instead of the rough metal of the lower decks. The lighting was softer and came from no visible source. The air was cooler and smelled of chemicals David did not recognize. The station had different sections for different species because different aliens needed different things to survive. Humans needed normal air and normal temperature, but the Quinter needed much colder conditions. The Valorian merchants needed higher air pressure, and the Keltari needed special gases that would kill a human in seconds. David walked fast, his boots making loud sounds on the smooth floor. He took a left turn, then another right. He was thinking about the water system he needed to fix. Old pipes, probably. Maybe some rust buildup. Nothing too difficult. He had fixed 100 systems just like it. He did not see the maintenance card until he was almost on top of it. David jumped to the left to avoid hitting it. His foot landed on something smooth. He looked down and saw that he had stepped through an open doorway. The door was dark gray, just like all the other doors in this section, but it had been left open. His momentum was too strong to stop. Before he could do anything, he had stumbled completely into the room beyond. The door shut behind him with a sharp hiss. For a moment, David just stood there, breathing hard, trying to understand what had happened. Then, he turned around and looked at the door. It was sealed completely. There was no handle, no button, nothing that would let him open it from this side. "I am sorry. I did not mean to enter," David said loudly, still facing the closed door. He had learned enough about alien customs to know that an apology was the right way to start in situations like this. "There is a maintenance shortcut I use. The door must have malfunctioned. I will leave right away." No answer came. David turned around to face the room. It was not large, maybe the size of his small apartment in the human section, but it was beautiful in a way that made David uncomfortable. The walls seemed to glow from inside, showing colors of purple and deep blue that changed as he watched. The floor beneath his feet was made of something that felt like stone but looked like crystal. On one side of the room was a long window that showed the black space outside the station and the bright stars beyond. A woman stood by the window. She was the most beautiful and most strange thing David had ever seen. She was tall, maybe 7 feet high, with skin that was blue and purple at the same time. The colors changed when she moved, becoming darker in some places and lighter in others. Her eyes were very large and bright yellow or gold. Her hair, if it could be called hair, was long and thin and seemed to move on its own, like it was floating in water even though they were in air. She wore clothes that looked like they were made from light itself. The fabric seemed to shine and move and change color. The woman did not move toward David. She did not reach for any weapon or alarm. She simply looked at him with calm eyes and a small smile on her face. "You are human," she said. Her voice was strange and beautiful. It sounded like music played on many instruments at the same time. Each word seemed to carry several different sounds together. "You are a technician, someone who works with machines. I can tell by your uniform and the oil stains on your hands." David was too surprised to do anything but nod. How did she know so much about him just by looking at him? "Yes," he said. His voice came out too quiet. He cleared his throat and spoke again. "Yes, I work for the Station Maintenance Division. I repair machines and systems. And I am very sorry for entering your room. There is a maintenance tunnel I use sometimes to move faster between the human section and level 4. The door must have been left open by mistake." The woman took a step closer to him. In the light from the walls, David could see that her skin was not smooth. There were lines and patterns on it, like rivers or roads made of crystal or light. They ran under her skin and seemed to shine with their own light. She was like looking at a person made from the night sky itself. "My name is Vera," she said. She said each part of her name separately, like it was made from two sounds. Vira. "I am Kelthani. My people do not often visit stations like this. We prefer to do our work from far away. We watch and listen and think about things. But the other species asked me to come here and talk about business and trade and other matters." She paused and looked at him for a long time. "I was dreading these talks very much," she said. "But your arrival has changed things. I'm glad that you entered this room by mistake." David did not know what to say to that. He looked at the door behind him, then back at Vira. "The door will not open," Vira said, as if she could read his mind. When you entered, the door recognized that something was wrong. It locked everything down to keep the room safe. "The door will stay sealed until I tell it to open. So you cannot leave right now." David felt panic start to rise in his chest. He was going to be even more late for his job. He was going to lose this work. He could not afford to lose any work. But he looked at Vira's calm face, and the panic faded a little. She did not seem dangerous. She seemed curious and maybe even kind. "How long will I be stuck here?" he asked. "For as long as you wish to talk with me," Vira said. "I want to know about your kind. I have read the reports that the other species have written about humans. But the reports are cold and made of numbers and facts. I want to know what it is like to be human. I want to understand your kind with more than just my mind. And I believe you can teach me." David thought about his work waiting on level 4. He thought about the supervisor who would be angry when he did not show up. But he also thought about this strange and beautiful alien woman who wanted to know about him. He thought about the fact that nobody had ever asked him questions like this before. "All right," David said. "I will tell you what you want to know. I will tell you about being human." And so David Morrison sat down on the crystal floor of the Kelthani woman's chamber and began to tell his story. David and Vira sat together by the large window that showed the stars and the darkness beyond. Hours had passed. The station's lights had changed to show that the shift was ending, and soon the night cycle would begin. But David did not think about leaving. He was telling Vera about his life, and she was listening in a way that made him feel like his words mattered. "I was born on Earth," David said. "It is a planet, and it is covered with water and life. I grew up in a city with millions of other humans. The city was loud and crowded. The air was not always clean, but there was always something happening, always something new to see or do." Vira listened without moving. Her large golden eyes watched his face, and her expression never changed. But David could feel that she was truly listening to every word. It was not the way the supervisors at work listened to him, with their minds already on other things. This was different. This was real attention. My mother worked in a factory that made machine parts, David continued. My father left when I was very young. I never knew him well. I had a younger sister, and we were very close. She wanted to be a scientist. She wanted to understand how things worked. I think she would have been very good at it. Would have been? Vira asked. What happened to her? David looked down at his hands. This was the hard part. The part he did not usually tell people. She got sick, he said. There was a disease that spread through our city. It was not a bad disease for most people. It made them sick for a few days, then they got better. But for some people, it was very dangerous. For my sister, it was deadly. She died when she was only 18 years old. Vira made a sound that was almost like a sigh. That is a form of suffering that my people do not experience often, she said. We live for a very long time, longer than your people can imagine. But we do not lose the young ones often. I am sorry that your kind must experience this. After that, everything changed, David said. My mother worked even harder. I had to work too, to help pay for our apartment and our food. I did not go to school the way I wanted to. I learned to fix machines instead. I was good at it. When I was old enough, I joined the space program. I became a technician. I worked on machines that went to other planets. And then, 5 years ago, I was asked to work on this station. And how do you feel about this station? Vira asked. About being so far from your world, surrounded by aliens and strange things? David thought about this question. It was a good question, and it deserved an honest answer. I feel like I do not belong here, he said. But I also feel like this is where I need to be. The pay is good. I can send money to my mother. I can help her have a better life. And even though I feel alone here, I feel like I am part of something big, something important. I am learning about how the universe works. I am meeting beings from other worlds. I am doing work that matters. Vira reached out and placed her hand on David's shoulder. Where her skin touched him, he felt warmth. Not the warmth of heat, but the warmth of connection, of being seen and understood. You are remarkable, she said. Do you know that? Your kind is remarkable. You have been on this world for only a few thousand years. In that time, you have built cities and machines and systems of government. You have made art and music. You have created stories. And you have done all of this while being small and weak and vulnerable to injury. We are not that remarkable, David said. We just do what we have to do to survive. No, Vira said, and her voice became serious. That is where you are wrong. There is something in your kind that is very special. The other species, the old species with their long histories and their advanced technology, they do not understand this. They measure intelligence by the speed of their computers. They measure strength by their weapons. They measure value by how long their civilization has lasted. But they miss what is most important about your kind. What is that? David asked. Vira was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke, and her words were careful and measured. Your kind feels things, she said, deeply and strongly. Your kind loves, and this love makes you willing to sacrifice for others. Your kind is afraid, but you do brave things anyway. Your kind knows that you will die someday, that you have only a short time on this world, and this makes you want to make your time matter. These are not weaknesses. These are forms of strength that the older species have forgotten. David did not know what to say. Nobody had ever told him that being human was a strength. People usually told him that humans were problems, that they were too emotional, too unpredictable, too violent. I need to tell you something, Vira said, and her tone changed. She sounded less gentle now. She sounded serious and concerned. Below this station, in the council chambers, there is a meeting happening right now. The Quinter are presenting a proposal to the other species. They want to place limits on where humans can go and what humans can do. They want to declare that your species is not ready to expand into the galaxy. They want to keep humans controlled and limited. David felt cold. Why would they want that? He asked. What have humans done to them? Nothing, Vira said. But the Quinter are afraid of change. They are afraid of anything that is not under their control. They have studied your kind for 10 years. They have looked at your emotions, your unpredictability, your short lives. And instead of seeing these things as strengths, they have labeled them as dangers. They have decided that humans are too unstable to be trusted with freedom. Can they do that? David asked. Can they just decide something like that and make it happen? They can propose it, Vira said. And if the other species agree, then yes, they can make it happen. The Council has power over trade, territory, and expansion rights. If humans are declared a restricted species, your people will not be able to move freely through the galaxy. You will be confined to a few worlds. Your progress will be stopped. David thought about his mother back on Earth. He thought about all the young humans growing up on human worlds, dreaming of exploring the stars. And he thought about what Vira was telling him, that all of those dreams might be taken away because the older species were afraid. What happens now? He asked. When do they vote? The vote is tomorrow, Vira said. And I have been asked to give my opinion on the matter. The Kalthani do not usually involve ourselves in such things. We prefer to observe and stay neutral. But I am beginning to think that neutrality is not always the right choice. She stood up and extended her hand to David. Will you help me? She asked. Will you help me show the Council what humans really are? The Council chamber was built into the deepest part of the Zenith station. David had never seen anything like it. The room was huge, as big as a sports field back on Earth. The ceiling was so high that it disappeared into shadow. All around the chamber, in sections that rose up like stairs, sat representatives from different alien species. David could see the Quinter in the upper left section. They were made of crystal that reflected the light. They had no clear heads or bodies like humans. They were just shapes made of geometric patterns and glowing lines. They moved by changing their internal structure. It was strange to look at them. It made David's brain hurt a little. Below the Quinter sat the Valorian. They were covered in thick skin and had too many arms. Their eyes were small and black, and they did not move much. They just sat still and watched everything. Below them were the Keltari, who looked like large insects with human-level intelligence. They made sounds that had to be translated by machines before other species could understand them. There were many other species, too. David saw beings made of what looked like gas or energy. He saw creatures that looked like they were made of metal. He saw things that did not seem solid at all. All of them were here to listen to the debate about humanity. Vira walked beside David as they entered the chamber. She wore official clothes now, the kind that showed she was a representative with real authority. The guards at the doors let them pass without question. But David could feel the attention of the entire chamber turning toward him. He was human. He was small and soft compared to the hard beings around him. He was a maintenance worker, someone at the very bottom of the station's social order. And he was about to speak to the most powerful beings in this sector of the galaxy. This is David Morrison, Vira announced. Her voice was clear and strong. It filled the entire chamber without any amplification. The Kelthani did not need machines to make their voices loud. He is a human, a member of the species that you are debating whether to restrict. I ask that you listen to his words before you make your vote. A sound came from the Quinter section. It was like wind moving through broken glass. The Quinter representative moved forward, its crystal shape catching the light. This human has no authority to speak before this council, the Quinter said. Its voice came from a device that translated its sounds into words humans could understand. He is not a scientist. He is not a government official. He's just a worker. We have already heard from human scientists and leaders. They have told us nothing that changes our analysis. David felt his hand shake. He had never spoken publicly before, but he thought of his mother and he thought of his sister. He thought of all the humans he had never met who depended on people like Vera to tell them the truth about human nature. He stepped forward and began to speak. "You measured my species by numbers," David said. His voice was not as clear or as strong as Vira's, but it was steady. "You counted how many wars we have fought. You counted how many times we have broken promises. You counted how many acts of violence we have committed. And from these numbers, you decided that humans are too dangerous. You decided that we cannot be trusted." David paused. He wanted to make sure his next words were right. "But you did not measure the right things," he continued. "You did not measure how many times humans have helped someone they did not know. You did not measure how many parents have died to protect their children. You did not measure how many people choose peace when they could choose war. You did not measure how many humans work hard at jobs they do not like so that others can have better lives." The chamber was silent now. Even the Quinter did not make their glass whine sound. "My mother works very hard," David said. "She works so that she can send money to help me. I work so that I can send money to help her. We have very little. We will never be rich. But we are willing to do this because the bond between us matters more than anything else. This is what you did not measure: the value of human connection, the strength of human love." David thought of his sister then, and his voice became stronger. "Humans know that we will die," he said. "We do not live for thousands of years like some of you. We live for only 80 or 90 years if we are lucky. Maybe 100. In that short time, we have to make our lives mean something. We have to help others. We have to build things that will last after we are gone. We have to love and be loved. This knowledge that our time is limited makes us brave. It makes us willing to take risks. It makes us willing to protect other beings, even when protection is dangerous." David looked at the Quinter directly. "You are afraid of humans because we are unpredictable," he said. "But you are measuring unpredictability the wrong way. Yes, we are unpredictable in violence. Some humans commit violence. But we are even more unpredictable in our capacity for forgiveness. We are unpredictable in our loyalty. We are unpredictable in our willingness to sacrifice ourselves for others. These are forms of unpredictability that your models did not include in their analysis. But they are more important than your weapons and your technology." Now Vira stepped forward. When she spoke, all the other species listened carefully. The Kelthani were old and wise. When they spoke, other species paid attention. "The Quinter have made a grave error," Vira said. "They have used the wrong standards to measure this species. They have forgotten that there are many forms of intelligence. The Quinter are intelligent because they can process information faster than almost any other species in this galaxy. The Kelthani are intelligent because we can observe and understand patterns across millennia. But humans are intelligent in a different way. They are intelligent because they can make moral choices. They can choose to be kind even when cruelty would be easier. They can choose to trust even when trust is risky. They can choose to love even though love causes pain." Vira paused, and her golden eyes moved from the Quinter to the other species watching. "If we restrict humanity," she continued, "we will be making the gravest mistake of this generation. We will be limiting not a threat, but a resource. We will be preventing the galaxy from gaining the benefit of a species that values compassion and connection. And we will prove that we, the older species, are so afraid of change that we will destroy something beautiful rather than allow it to grow." The council chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then, one by one, the species began to vote. The Valorian voted to allow human expansion. The Keltari voted to allow it. The beings made of energy voted to allow it. The representatives from the 14 other species present also voted in favor. Only the Quinter voted to restrict humanity. And when the final count was announced, the Quinter representative made a sound of anger and frustration that the translation device could not quite capture. But the vote had been made. Humanity would have the freedom to expand into the galaxy. The restriction would not be placed. David Morrison, a simple maintenance worker, had changed the course of human history. He did not know it yet, but he had. 3 weeks after the council vote, David was working in the station's central computer core when he found something very wrong. The core was the place where all the station's information was stored. David was there to fix some damaged cooling tubes, but while he worked, he noticed unusual activity in the security files. There were data transfers happening to places that should not have had access to station information. There were encrypted messages being sent to locations outside the station's normal communication network. And there was information about human colonies being sent to someone, somewhere in the darkness between worlds. David knew he should report this to his supervisor, but something made him stop. Something in his chest that his mother had taught him to trust. The feeling that something was very wrong. He used the station's access code he had been given, the one that let him move through most places. He found a quiet corner in the computer core, away from the main work area, and he began to search the encrypted files, moving slowly and carefully so that nobody would notice what he was doing. What he found made him feel sick. The Quinter had not stopped their research after the council vote. They had increased it. They had sent vessels to human colonies in the outer edges of the galaxy. These vessels were not there for research. They were there for military reconnaissance. The Quinter were mapping human populations. They were studying human military capabilities. They were building weapon systems and moving them into position. And they were writing reports that completely contradicted what they had told the council. David found one report that said the Quinter had deliberately falsified their data about humans. They had removed information about human achievement and replaced it with information about human violence and failure. They had used their computers to manipulate their own research. The reason was clear in another report. The Quinter were afraid. They were afraid that humanity, with its unpredictability and its refusal to be controlled, would eventually become a threat to Quinter dominance. They wanted to restrict humans, not to protect them, but to prevent them from becoming powerful enough to challenge Quinter authority. Now, after losing the council vote, the Quinter had decided on a different strategy. If they could not restrict humanity through law, they would do it through military force. They would invade human territories. They would occupy human worlds. They would enslave humanity before humanity could become a real threat. David printed out everything he found. His hands were shaking as he copied the data. He had no idea what he was going to do with this information, but he knew that Vera needed to see it. He left the computer core and went directly to Vera's chamber. The door opened immediately when he arrived. It was like the door had been waiting for him. Vera was standing by the window, looking out at the stars, just as she had been that first day when David stumbled through her door by accident. "You have found something," Vera said before David could speak. It was not a question. David handed her the printouts. He watched her face as she read. He saw her expression change. He saw anger, real anger, in her golden eyes. "This is betrayal at the deepest level," Vera said quietly. "The Quinter do not just want to control your species. They want to destroy any possibility that humans could become equal to them. They want permanent dominance. Can we show this to the council?" David asked. Can't we tell them what the Quinter has really been doing? Vera turned to him. Her expression was sad now and very serious. If we present this evidence, she said, we will be accusing the Quinter of conspiracy and fraud. The Council will have no choice but to respond. There will be conflict. There may be war. The peace that we have tried to build since your species joined the galactic community could be destroyed. But if we do nothing, David said, the Quinter will invade human worlds. They will kill people. They will enslave my species. That is worse than conflict. Yes, Vira said after a long silence. It is worse. I have spent my entire existence observing from a distance. I have believed that the Kelthani should not involve ourselves in the struggles of younger species. But watching you, listening to you, learning from you, I have come to understand something important. Observation without action is a form of participation. When I choose to be silent about injustice, I am choosing to allow the injustice to continue. She walked to a communication device on her wall. It was unlike anything David had ever seen. It had no buttons or screens. Vera simply placed her hand on it, and light filled the room. I am calling the Kelthani Council, she said. I am telling them what we have discovered. I am asking them to stand with us, with humanity, against this Quinter conspiracy. There was a long wait. David could see information moving through the light, communication happening at speeds faster than anything human technology could manage. Then the light changed color, becoming more blue. The Kelthani will stand with humanity, Vira said. My people have authorized me to present this evidence to the Galactic Council. We will demand an investigation. And if the Quinter refuse to submit to investigation, we will ask the Council to restrict Quinter expansion instead of human expansion. David felt something shift inside him. He was no longer alone. He had an ally, a powerful ally. The Kelthani had chosen to help humanity. There is one more thing, David said. We need to tell the other human leaders. They need to prepare for the possibility of military action. They need to move people away from the frontier colonies. They need to get ready. Vira nodded. I will arrange communication with your government, she said. They will need to understand what is coming. For the next several days, David and Vira worked together. They prepared presentations for the council. They gathered evidence. They built a case so strong that no one could deny what the Quinter had done. David found himself working side by side with Vira, and as they worked, something changed between them. It was not something that David could describe easily. It was not quite love, though it was not far from it. It was a connection that came from sharing a purpose, from fighting together for something they believed in, from seeing each other not as alien and human, but as two beings trying to do what was right. You know, David said to her one evening as they rested after many hours of work, I walked through a wrong door 3 weeks ago. I thought I was just trying to find a shortcut. You were, Vira said, and there was something like a smile in her voice. But the shortest paths in life are often the most important ones. Sometimes we are meant to stumble through doors we did not know were there. Sometimes chance is really destiny wearing a disguise. David reached out and took her hand. Her skin was cool and soft, and it felt right in his hand. Like they were meant to be connected this way. A council vote would come soon. The Quinter would be confronted with evidence of their crimes. There would be consequences and conflict. But David Morrison, a simple maintenance worker from Earth, had found something more valuable than safety or comfort. He had found a partner. Someone who believed in him and his kind. Someone who had chosen to stand with humans against the odds. And that made everything possible. The emergency council session lasted for 3 days. Representatives from 23 different species came to listen as Vira presented the evidence of Quinter conspiracy. The data was clear and undeniable. The Quinter had falsified research. They had built military forces in secret. They had made plans to invade human worlds and enslave human populations. The Quinter defended themselves by saying that they had only been protecting galactic peace. They said that humans were too young and too dangerous to be trusted with freedom. They said that their actions had been necessary, but no defense was strong enough to overcome the evidence. The vote was decided quickly. The Quinter's expansion rights were suspended. Their military operations were shut down. All of their weapons and vessels were confiscated. Quinter scientists and government officials were placed under investigation for fraud and conspiracy. It was not total victory for humanity. The Quinter still existed, and some of their military forces refused to accept the Council's decisions. There were standoffs in the outer sectors. Some Quinter vessels attempted to escape and hide in deep space. But the majority of the Quinter species recognized that their path had been wrong, and they demanded that their leaders accept the Council's punishment. More importantly, humanity was now recognized as a full member of the galactic community. Human merchants could trade freely with all species. Human scientists could work on galactic research projects. Human colonists could move to new worlds without restrictions. And humans were granted seats on the Galactic Council itself. David Morrison became famous. Humans on planets across the galaxy learned his name. They learned about the maintenance worker who had stumbled into a Kelthani chamber and changed the course of human history. Some people thought he was a hero. Others thought he had just been lucky. David did not really care what people thought. He only knew that his life had changed completely. But the most important change in David's life had nothing to do with galactic politics or council votes. It had to do with Vira. A year after David first entered her chamber, Vira asked to meet with the highest leaders of human government. She told them that the Kelthani wished to place a permanent representative on human worlds. She said that the Kelthani wanted to work closely with humanity to help them develop and grow as a galactic species. And she volunteered to be that representative. The human government leaders were surprised but pleased. They offered Vera a position of great authority and respect. But Vera declined most of the formal duties. She said she wanted to work directly with David Morrison. She wanted to help him create a new organization, something between humans and Kelthani that could help bridge the gap between the two species. David and Vira built something called the Exchange Program. Young humans were sent to Kelthani worlds to learn about Kelthani philosophy and science. Young Kelthani came to human worlds to learn about human history and art. It was slow work, sometimes frustrating work, but it worked. It created bonds between the species that went deeper than politics or trade. One evening, after a year of working together on the exchange program, David and Vira stood in that same chamber where they had first met. The window still showed the stars and the darkness beyond. But now, instead of being a barrier between them, the view seemed to show all the possibilities that stretched out in front of them. "I want to tell you something," Vera said. "I have been trying to find the right words for many weeks, but I think I have finally found them." David waited. He had learned that Vira always thought carefully before she spoke. "When you stumbled through that door," Vira continued, "I was feeling lost and alone. My people expect me to observe and remain neutral. But watching you, listening to you speak about your life and your family and your dreams, I felt something that I had not felt in a very long time. I felt hope. I felt connection. I felt like I wanted to be part of something, instead of just watching from the outside." She reached out and took his hand, the way she had many times before, but this time her expression was different. There was something deeper in her golden eyes. "I love you," she said. "I know this is not what your species calls traditional. I know that I am different from you in many ways. But I love you, and I want to stay with you, and I want to see what we can build together." David felt his chest tighten. He had not expected this, even though he had hoped for it. "I love you too," he said. The words came easily and naturally. "I did not expect to feel this way. I thought I was just going to be a maintenance worker who fixed machines. But then I walked through a wrong door and everything changed." They stood together by the window, looking out at the stars. Below them, in the station and in the human sectors and on the human worlds beyond, life was changing. New buildings were being constructed. New schools were being opened. Young humans were learning about the galaxy and their place in it. And Kelthani observers were walking among them, learning about humanity. The future would not be easy. There would be conflicts and disagreements. There would be times when humans and Kelthani did not understand each other. But there would also be growth and learning, and the slow building of real friendship between species. And it all started when a maintenance worker walked through the wrong door. David thought about his mother sometimes. Back on Earth, he sent her messages about his life on the station, about Vira, about the work he was doing. His mother told him that she was proud of him. She told him that his sister would have been proud of him too. She told him that he had done something important, even if he had done it by accident. "What are you thinking about?" Vira asked him. "I am thinking about how random life is," David said. "How small changes lead to big changes. How one wrong turn can lead you to exactly where you need to be." "That is a very human way of looking at the universe," Vira said. "My people would say that the universe is ordered and logical, that everything happens according to patterns and laws that we can understand and predict." "And now?" David asked. "Now," Vira said, squeezing his hand gently, "I think there is room for both views. Order and randomness. Logic and chance. Structure and surprise. Maybe that is what my people needed to learn from humanity. That the universe is more beautiful and more interesting. When you accept that not everything can be controlled or predicted." They stood there as the station's artificial light cycle shifted toward the night colors. Stars twinkled beyond the window. Somewhere in the depths of space, new human colonies were being established. New trade routes were being opened. New friendships were being formed between species that had previously been strangers or enemies. All because David Morrison had walked through the wrong door. All because an alien woman had chosen not to ask him to leave. All because two beings from different worlds had decided to see each other as progenies, something more than representatives of their species. They had seen each other as individuals. And in that seeing, they had changed everything. The story of humanity in the galaxy had just begun. And it would be a story unlike anything anyone had imagined.